We are here with Daniela Ruah, who starred in NCIS LA as Special Agent Kenzie Bly and who was the host of Eurovision 2018 in Lisbon. Daniela, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, guys. I love that you have an interest in Eurovision.
I will say I did start taking an interest when Magnus invited me over to his apartment in 2018. So your Eurovision was the first one I ever saw.
It is. My favorite pastime is to introduce Americans to Eurovision. And sometimes it goes so well that they start a podcast with you.
Sometimes it goes so well that Magnus lives to regret it. But you've talked about watching Eurovision after your family moved back to Portugal. Can you walk us through like any early memories you have of the contest?
I think Doble was probably the person who stuck with me the most when it comes to Portuguese representation. She participated in 1991 in the movie Primal Fear with Richard Gere. He goes into this bar and there's a song playing in the background and he says, "This is a nice song." And the guy hands Richard Gere the CD of Doble. I just remember at the time we were so proud, like, oh my gosh, a singer who has been to Eurovision made it into an American movie. And it was just kind of a really proud moment for everybody. I just always remember it being quite unifying, right? It's the United States of Europe are getting together to do this really fun thing. It was just always a part of the culture. Like, okay, we're competing to elect the Portuguese singer and now we're going to go watch and support. And you obviously can't call in for your own country, which is always frustrating.
We often talk about the difference between, is Eurovision primarily a competition or primarily a cultural exchange? And I think, Portugal very much has a reputation for sending something that's very Portuguese. Growing up in Portugal, what was sort of the music culture like and how did Eurovision fit into that?
Oh, that's a great question. First of all, yes, I agree with you. I think that we've always tried to give a touch of our own culture in music. You obviously have the more folkloric sounds, dun, 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 that kind of thing. And then you, of course, have Fado, which is our, I would say, traditional music. And until today, you have all these new younger artists who are beautiful Fado singers. Our most famous one, she passed away many years ago. Her name was Amália Rodrigues. But there's a lot of new, younger singers. One, for example, is Carminho, and she was actually invited to sing live for the Pope when he visited Lisbon. And she starts a cappella, and it's just, you can't not get emotional listening to this. And also, that's what makes you unique, right? If we all just try and do a bunch of American-style pop songs, then we're all going to sound the same.
2017 was the first year your husband had watched Eurovision.
I presume so. I presume so.
Why did it take you so long to introduce him?
I probably took a break from it for many years for not being in Portugal and not feeling the hype, right? It's so much easier to be involved in something when you're a part of the hype and it's around you. And did you watch? Did you see? Here, it's just not a discussion. But it was really exciting to be able to do that with him for the first time because it was also the fact that Portugal won. Was he the person with the highest score of all time?
Yeah.
At the time,
right?
Yeah.
I was at my mom's house at the time and we're all sitting down, you're watching those points come in from countries. And so we were all just like biting our nails. And when you get to that point where like your score is so high where it doesn't matter what anybody else gets, they're not going to be able to get there. And so when they announced, I get really emotional over very, very happy things. And like, I even feel it now because you're taking me back to that moment. And when he won, it was just like, and to know what he had been going through, he actually needed a transplant. And like knowing that he had to wear like larger shirts because his body was doing what it was doing. I think he had to have a machine attached to him. Oh my gosh, it was just, we're whooping and hollering at home. And I'm like, babe, you don't understand how big a deal this is. Like, we've never won in like 50 years. As an American, he just doesn't have that same connection to the contest that we do. And he's like, so next year it's here in Portugal? Why don't you host? And I was like, oh my God, there you go again with your big ideas. And he's like, no, seriously, why don't you host? And I was like, why don't I host? Like,
It's kind of like European watching the Super Bowl and be like, oh, you should just perform the halftime show next year. Like, why not? Like, it's sort of an element of that. You're like, here's Portugal waited 60 years to win and host. And then he's just like, hey, you can just do it, right? But it's kind of perfect.
That's really funny. Imagine a European watching the Super Bowl and being like, wait, so you could do the halftime show next year. Like, we should ask. We should ask if you can do it. I called my rep back home, and it turns out that RTP1, who's the channel that airs it, they wanted to do an all-female hosting cast, and they absolutely had their 3 Channel 1 hosts who work with them all the time, all of which are friends of mine, by the way. And it turns out they were looking for a 4th person who was an outsider, an out-of-the-box name. And they were like, can we be it? So it was just kind of a perfect combo, perfect storm. And it was amazing going to rehearsals. The Portuguese producers, they had a script because, you know, outside of the jokes, you of course have to have everything really well structured of like, when do we even come on stage? But then of course, because it has to be conversational, it has to feel like we just sort of built those things, and we just literally sit around a round table with the producers, and we just worked it and worked it and worked it until you had everybody giggling at the same joke. It's like, okay, there was a response that works. Let's keep that. Every show is done 3 times for different reasons. It's like dress rehearsal, recorded rehearsal, and then the live show. And every one of those 3 times, it has to be identical. The performers, the musicians, like nobody can change a single thing. You cannot change a single note. So that It's not like the next day is a better show than the day before, because the jury is going to be voting on what they see. And so the same thing went for us as hosts. You know, every joke, every place you are, every moment had to be identical. The gut punch was when they said, by the way, there's no teleprompter. And you know what? Let's see what it looks like if no one has cards. And we're like, so wait, what? We all memorized everything, which doesn't seem like a big deal. But when you're standing in front of thousands and thousands of people and you know that you're being broadcast live into people's homes all around the world, like the nerves get to you. You know what I mean? And so we just rehearsed it so many times. I had to do like a page worth of dialogue where I'm walking through some of the fans, and a fan hands me something in that moment, and I hand it off as I'm describing certain things, and then I'm speaking through a little buoy here, and then I pull a guy out of a safe who's an attractive man who's going to give me something else. Everything has to be perfectly choreographed because you're live, right? And if somebody decides to do something stupid in that moment, like, you know, push you, I just have to go with the flow because I'm live. So mad respect to all those like news anchors and people that just do that every night.
Both of your kids were born at this point. So that must have added a whole other level of complication to the all-consuming job of hosting. What was balancing all that like?
Balancing all that is having an unbelievable husband and mother who were just really helpful at the time. And my husband and I really value each other's work ethic. So if he's like, hey, babe, I got to skip town for 3 weeks because I have this job on a movie, I'm like, yeah, I got it, man. Like I got the reins of the household, and the same thing happens when the opposite happens. I mean, it was his idea, for crying out loud. So it'd be really weird if it was like, oh. And you know, my mentality with my kids is never like, I'm so sorry I have to go to work. My mentality is I get to go do this. I get to go do this thing that makes me happy and is exciting. We kind of value work in this house. We value sharing that work with them. We value them acknowledging that that is another part of adult life that they will also experience at some point. And, you know, work ethic is something we really try to tell them about, but also show them.
One of the most amazing things about Eurovision is that, like, yes, it's a fun TV show, but also you get introduced to genres of music and artists that you would have never found on your own.
For me, discovering Netta, who won for Israel. Ouch. Like, she comes from a musical improv background, and you can see, like, even the way that she does the song, she's building it on stage. And it was so cool and funky and different and unique. And I can tell you that both her and the contestant for Cyprus had the entire arena jumping when our beautiful British singer came on, and she had a great song. I actually still listen to it today, and somebody jumped on stage and pulled the microphone from her. I thought that was such an unfortunate moment because, you work so hard to get to that point of representing your country.
Backstage, I can imagine step one is figuring out what the heck is going on, and then how are we going to handle it?
It was extremely quick. Like that guy or whoever it was, they jumped on stage and they immediately, I think, turned off the microphone because it was like, your message will not be delivered. They were, of course, removed as quickly as possible, but that doesn't mean it didn't interrupt her performance. But it's like I said, you're so nervous as it is. You're performing on live television for millions of people around the world, plus the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that are in this arena with you. But everybody was extremely supportive. The fact that she got the microphone back and kept singing was, again, like that basic thing, whatever happens, don't stop dancing. And she just really, she crushed it. She crushed it. And I really like the song. Like I said, I still listen to the song today.
Since you mentioned liking the song, if you haven't listened to some of her other music, it's really gorgeous.
I will for sure. Suri, if you're listening to this, you're amazing.
Salvador Sobral was reprimanded by the EBU for wearing a shirt that tried to bring attention to the refugee crisis. And nearly every year, there are controversies involving whether an artist or an act can express a point of view. As someone who's worked with the organization, how do you think the EBU and Eurovision should think about the freedom they give artists, and do you think they got it right in his case?
I think especially with what's going on in the world right now, I think that is an enormously loaded question. And I don't know that I have the stance to be able to answer that. On one hand, you want people to be vocal and active, and if they have a platform. But at the same time, it's like, let the show be what it is, So I could honestly be devil's advocate and argue both points. And it's just like, it's not that person's fault that whatever's going on in their country is happening, right? They didn't call the shots. They're just here to represent a nation, and not everybody agrees with whatever that nation is doing. So I could argue both ways. Eurovision in general is such a big mashup of cultures and countries, and it's a beautiful thing for that very reason. But for that very reason, it's also a performance that has an immense amount of security. Everybody is checked, everybody, even to go in through the backstage, the security guards said they knew that we were hosting, and we'd go through there every single day, and still credentials, metal detector. It has immense amount of security regardless, because, it's a big group of people getting together. And if somebody wanted to cause damage, that would be a great opportunity. And we all know it.
You're trained as an actor, but also as a dancer. And I watched your Paso Doble routine.
Oh,
it's so good.
Oh, it's not. I just look like a flailing, skinny spider with just arms and legs everywhere. I don't know. I just look back at that. I'm like, oh my God. Like I go down into that crouch, and as I stand up, I step on my own skirt by mistake, and it just literally doesn't come up with me. I come up without the skirt.
Oh, it's a reveal.
I know. I mean, honestly, maybe I watched too much Drag Race, but it looked great to me.
Here's the funny thing. During the rock and roll dance, I said it would be really, really fun to have the rock and roll shorts on, but like maybe have a skirt on where somewhere in the dance I pull this rock and roll skirt off. And he said, no, we can't do that because that wouldn't be fair. And then lo and behold, Paso Doble, it happens by mistake. And I was like,
you snuck the reveal in there. I think that's great.
Yes, but it's okay. It was only live for like 8,000 people. 8,000 people plus whoever was watching at home. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Did you win with that routine?
I won with many routines, not just that one.
I'm a huge fan of the show Traitors.
I hosted last year. I'd watched the British one. I'd watched the Australian one. I'd watched a bunch already. I love how within the reality world, how this is truly just focused on the strategy, and it's not focused on the conflict or the argument. We're not trying to hang a lantern on people's bad behavior or something like that. And it's just crazy how much people start off the show. Everybody's just kind of still evaluating and whatnot and trying to go for the smallest things. Like I saw micro expression in your face of X, Y, and Z. And you're just like, oh my God, this person could not be more wrong. As I'm walking around the room, I have the producer in my ear, and she's like, go around the circle, and I have to discreetly touch somebody on the shoulder. And, she's like, okay, take a pause right there, but don't touch anyone. Okay, keep moving. So you really want to throw people off with where you slowed down or where you didn't slow down, and just keep it moving. And it would be silly to judge who it is based on where you hear my footsteps. And so one gentleman, there was something about his profession that he was like, and I can hear how she has, I think he said I had a limp.
Great.
I made a joke to him afterwards, and he was like, "Oh my God, you heard me say that." And I was like, "I hear everything you guys say."
Daniela, thank you so much.
Thank you guys. This was super fun. This was awesome.
All the mysteries of the Euroverse.